The NFL draft is just about a month away, so today I want to give you guys 3 players that are climbing up NFL draft boards. We already did the Fallers version of this video, so if you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so. But let's hop into these risers. Starting off the list, we're going to show some love to the offensive linemen, and we are starting off, of course, with Georgia tackle Monroe Freeling, who has been climbing up NFL draft boards, and I honestly think has the potential to be the #1 tackle taken in this draft. And I could easily see him being a top 10 pick at this point. The first thing you got to know about Monroe is he is an absolute freaking tank, man. 6'7", 315 pounds, 10 3/4 inch hands, and a 4.9 speed. The dude is a freak athlete at the offensive tackle position. Those measurables should be scary for opposing defensive ends when they're looking across and they see Monroe Freeling. Now, Freeling is likely to be a right tackle in the NFL, but I do think a big up that he has on his counterparts like Muaga and Fano, who were previously considered more likely than not to be drafted ahead of him, is his ability to transfer to the left tackle position if needed. I believe that it's more likely that if a team wanted a left tackle, they would select a Monroe Freeling rather than a Francis Muaga or a Spencer Fano because of his size and the versatility it allows. A long time ago, we weren't really throwing Freeling in these conversations, but as of today, as we're headed towards the draft, I think any one of those 3 guys could be the #1 tackle taken. And just to prove it to you, let's head to the draft board. So when we look at the draft board, obviously pick 1, the Raiders are taking Mendoza. The Jets have their offensive tackle situation all sorted out. And then the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock, man. And I'm not saying I'm necessarily predicting them to take Monroe Freeling, but the team does need a tackle. And it's very possible that they fall in love with Freeling, meaning he could be a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, and it really wouldn't surprise me. Another landing spot that I love for him is the Cleveland Browns here at 6. The Browns could easily go Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State, but they need offensive line help, especially losing a lot of their line in the offseason. And we know that Shador needs protection next year. Monroe Freeling could easily be the guy that the Cleveland Browns bring in. And again, the versatility that this guy has, where he could either be a right or left tackle for them in the future, is not something that I believe a Spencer Fano or a Francis Muaga possesses at that high of a level. We keep going down though. Kansas City, I know it doesn't say that they need a tackle, but they did just lose Jawan Taylor this offseason. A right tackle is in need from Kansas City, and if they decided Freeling was the best player available, or hell, even if the Browns take a Muaga or a Fano earlier, Monroe Freeling could still be a top 10 pick to Kansas City in this spot, man. He is climbing up draft boards. You talk about Miami, they could take him at 11. The Rams, they could take him at 13. I mean, I just listed multiple spots inside the top 15 picks where I think Monroe Freeling realistically could end up. Up next, we're going to talk about Indiana wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr., who is a guy that is skyrocketing up the draft boards. This is a guy that I saw as a 2nd-round pick as early as a month ago, and now I'm seeing people that have him ranked as their #2 wide receiver in the entire draft class. And yes, that does mean Omar Cooper Jr. has the potential to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Now, listen, the measurables are solid. 6 foot, 200 pounds, 4.42 speed. It's a solid slot wide receiver. He is an absolute dude. There's no doubt about it. And if you haven't been watching a ton of college ball, I promise you have seen one of this man's highlights. The catch against Penn State, that one toe down, don't know how you did it. Indiana pulls off the victory against Penn State. Their undefeated season was on the line in that game, and Omar Cooper Jr. makes the play. We know that this dude is a big-time baller, but aside from that, he was very productive at Indiana. He was a really strong asset for Fernando Mendoza, and of course, an undefeated Indiana team. Yes, Mendoza was part of that, but so was a guy like Omar Cooper Jr. at wide receiver. Let's head back to the draft board. Now, again, we head back to the draft board here, and do I envision a world where Cooper Jr. is a top 5 pick? Probably not, right? That feels a little bit too rich. However, if the New York Giants or the New York Jets find themselves taking Carnell Tate in the top 5, and all of a sudden, again, a team that we talked about here, but we'll just run through all of them right here. Cleveland, Washington, the Saints, Kansas City, hell, even throw in Miami at 11. All of those teams are desperate for a wide receiver. All of those teams could be sniffing out and targeting Omar Cooper Jr. There has been a little bit of question marks around a Makai Lemon lately and a Jordan Tyson in terms of his ability to stay healthy. To me, Cornell Tate is still the clear number one in this draft class, especially when you factor in his size, but just his legit ability to be an outside wide receiver one. However, though, we have seen in recent memory that you can be very productive from the slot in the NFL. Guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown absolutely feast from that spot. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, those are guys that primarily eat from that spot as well. Omar Cooper Jr. could do that in the NFL. If you're the Cleveland Browns, your outside wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Bond, throw Cooper Jr. in the slot, you have a Harold Fannin, boom, a really solid young core. Washington, they're moving off of Deebo Samuel this offseason. You have Terry McLaurin on the outside. They might bring in a Brandon Ayuk and Omar Cooper Jr. in the slot. And all of a sudden, Jaden Daniels' weapons core at wide receiver goes from bad to really solid, if we're being honest. Chris Olave is the outside guy for New Orleans, but they don't have a slot guy. Not a guy that, they could put as much faith in as an Omar Cooper Jr. Kansas City, it's a little bit more wishy-washy because Rashee Rice does primarily operate outside of the slot, and Miami, quite frankly, could use every position anywhere. You could as well make a case down here for the Rams. Puka Nacua could be a primary outside guy, or you could, of course, swap him and Omar Cooper Jr. Hell, even Baltimore at 14 is pretty interesting. Top 15, top 10 pick, but Omar Cooper Jr. is a name to watch because he is climbing up draft boards, and for teams that I think maybe wanted him later in the draft, whether it was Carolina or the Chargers or, Philly, Cleveland with this pick, Buffalo, Kansas City with this pick, Miami with this pick, I don't think he's going to be available past 15. Omar Cooper Jr. is a name to watch. And lastly, but certainly not least, we're talking about edge rusher Malachi Lawrence at a UCF, a senior that maybe is going under the radar, but I think is going to sneak his way into the first round of the NFL draft. I watched some tape on this guy after hearing enough people say this is probably a late first round pick. And the tape didn't lie. Malachi Lawrence was really, really solid, a really strong power rusher with solid pursuit of the quarterback and actually pretty decent against the run game as well. We talk about the size again, 6'4", 253 pounds with 4.5 speed. I mean, all these college athletes that are coming out now seem to be the fastest people ever on the planet. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I feel that way. And again, this guy's a senior, a little bit older prospect. So do I expect him to jump up into the top 10? No, he's not going to enter the Ruben Bain, David Bailey-esque conversations. But for a team at the end of the first round that could use an edge rusher around picks 20-ish, I think Malachi Lawrence certainly comes in play, especially if you're a team that wants to win now. Let's head back to that draft board. So back to the draft board, I don't really see him being a top 10-ish pick. I think where it gets interesting is maybe Tampa Bay at 15. We do know that they want to win now. Lawrence out of Central Florida could be interesting. I don't know if I fully see the Jets going there with edge rusher. Carolina could use defensive line, but they did just pay a Jalen Phillips. Dallas is interesting at pick 20 because we know that they want to compete as early as next year. Philly, they're always in the market for edge rushers. They lost Jalen Phillips. They didn't replace him. A team that's clearly looking to compete next season. Chicago needs help on the defensive line. Buffalo needs help on the defensive line. San Francisco could use another edge rusher. Kansas City at pick 29 could take a Malachi Lawrence. Hell, even New England and Seattle at picks 31 and 32. There is a lot of teams that are going to be in the market for pass rushers. There always is. And teams that want to vie and be competitive next year may be better served to have a senior player, an older player, a more experienced and polished prospect rather than a project piece. You compare, say, a Malachi Lawrence to a Caleb Banks. They're both on the defensive line, but it feels like you're drafting Banks for the athleticism and hoping you could reach a potential ceiling. Where for Lawrence, you know the player you're going to get right away, and he's going to be productive. Is he going to be an all-pro caliber player one day? I don't want to fully say no, but the projections aren't that high of a ceiling. But could he get you double-digit sacks and be really solid in the run game? Absolutely. So those are three guys that I think are going to rise up draft boards. Got a ton more draft content coming for you guys over the next month. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you loved NFL draft content. But shoot, man, if you just love the NFL, we are doing this 24/7, 365, looking to grow the channel. I'll catch you next time. Peace.